A very good evening to you and welcome to ITV News. This is Monday night's calendar.
Yes, hello, good evening. Here are tonight's main stories.
A Leeds mother calls for her mouldy council flat to be demolished over fears for her children's health.
It's making me mad. It's making me mad that the council is allowing my two young children to live in these horrible circumstances.
Also tonight, families share their stories of struggling to get by at the summit aiming to tackle child poverty in South Yorkshire.
It feels like a sinking hole that you can't get out of, and the further down that you sink and the darker that things get, the less light that you can see in the future.
We hear from a former soldier and triple amputee as he prepares for his solo sail across the Pacific Ocean.
And join me later as we'll be turning the clock back to the Viking times here in York.
So first this evening to the calls for some social housing in Leeds to be demolished because it's not fit for purpose. Leeds City Council has around 28,000 applicants on its waiting list. But even if they get a home, some say they simply aren't good enough.
One mum has told us that she fears the damp in her home is making her children ill. While the Ombudsman, which intervenes in disputes between local councils and tenants, says the number of cases where the tenant has a legitimate claim has risen massively. Helen Steele reports.
Much of the council housing stock in Leeds is over 80 years old. And Louise Clark says the cracks are showing. She says the state of this block of flats in Middleton means her children's health is at risk. Today they're off school. She says it's related to mould.
So this is in my girls' bedroom, which is the windowsill.
Louise has complained dozens of times to Leeds City Council about mould, damp and holes in the walls.
It's making me mad. It's making me mad that the council is allowing my two young children to live in these horrible circumstances. They're not fixing it properly. It's getting worse and worse every day.
Louise's local councillor says there is no quick fix. He's calling for this block and others like it to be demolished and replaced with new homes.
Damp issues come up quite often. Mainly because of how they're constructed, I think, but also because the repairs aren't always made up to the highest standards as they should be.
Louise has taken her complaint to the Housing Ombudsman. Well, the Social Housing Ombudsman said the number of complaints it upheld last year was at an all-time high. Nationally, councils had to pay out almost £5 million in compensation, and here in Leeds, the number of times it found on the side of the tenant also rose significantly.
What we're seeing are consistent reasons why landlords are getting things wrong, and that might be communicating really poorly, residents thinking what's happening, and then making those repairs in a way which is timely. Sometimes in our cases we see delays not for days, not for months, but for years.
The government says it will address this. It's announced new measures to crack down on social landlords, named Awab's Law after a toddler who died from a respiratory infection caused by black mould.
We think across the board, renters deserve properly insulated, warm accommodation, and we'll be making announcements in the coming months about how these same standards will apply to the social rented sector.
Back in Leeds, the council says it has repaired Louise's home recently and it has a dedicated damp and mould team. It added it recognises issues can arise with some of its older homes. Louise says it's not remedial action that's needed, but new homes.
It's tearing people apart because of how the council are expecting us to live. Would they like to live like how they're making us live? They probably wouldn't.
Helen Steele, ITV News in Leeds.
And thank you to Louise for sharing her story with us. A new operator has been announced for the Bradford Live venue following months of uncertainty. The council spent £44 million transforming the old Odeon building, but it's been sitting empty since last year. The original group tasked with running it, NEC Group, pulled out before it was set to launch. Today, it was confirmed that Trafalgar Entertainment will take over. The company says it will work with bosses from Bradford City of of Culture on a plan to use the refurbished space in the event programme.
The Railway Museum in York will be one of 10 culture projects across the UK to receive a total of more than £67 million. It's hoped the investment will bring jobs, homes and investment to York and the wider North Yorkshire. £15 million of investment will go to the Railway Museum, which aims to become a world-leading visitor attraction.
It's brilliant. I mean, it's fantastic, and seeing the young people and the kids coming in, and their eyes are absolutely lit up, and the adults as well. You can see their eyes light up, and it's a fantastic place. And the £15 million investment here will see even more opportunities for the interaction and for the investment and growth across the whole of York.
Next, young people who were brought up without enough money for food and clothes in South Yorkshire have told a conference in Sheffield today that things really do need to change.
The gathering came to the city as it was revealed that 1 in 4 children in the region live in poverty. Brittany Jackson, who's a single mother, says struggling to make ends meet blights a child's vision of the future. Katie Oscroft reports.
Across Sheffield and across South Yorkshire, a quarter of children are living in deprivation.
The wheels on the bus go round and round.
Round and round, round and round.
Brittany wants 5-year-old Alea to have a better childhood than she did. At times, she didn't even have a roof over her head.
It affects the kids more than what parents think and more than what professionals think when you're struggling and you can't afford things. But then there's also that added pressure of, I don't want to ask for help because I don't want anyone to know I'm struggling.
Access to better services helped Brittany to get back on her feet.
I lived in poverty as a child.
Today she stood tall at this conference and described just what it's like to be a child in poverty.
If you're struggling to pay for your gas and electric and you're having to choose buying 4 meals a week over putting your gas on, then you're in poverty.
Amy grew up in Sheffield, relying on donated food and second-hand clothes.
You might have to get referred to food banks, which aren't that nutritious. I think education goes on about £5 a day a lot, but most of the food banks I got, I didn't get many veg or fruit. Even if children only make 20% of the population, they make 100% of the future.
And that, says the charity Save the Children, is why it's shining a light on how big the problem is in South Yorkshire, where no single organisation is responsible for children like Brittany and Amy when they were growing up.
Today we're releasing some survey data which shows that 2/3 of people in South Yorkshire care desperately about child poverty, and 3/4 of them believe that child poverty and poverty in their communities is an impediment to the economic well-being of this region. So this is an investment.
And South Yorkshire's Mayor says this is the key to improvement.
We've got to focus on those things where we're genuinely world leading, like advanced manufacturing or digital, in order to give people the opportunities that can get themselves out of poverty rather than just making more money available for schemes that we might or might not be able to run.
The messages today have come from people who know what poverty feels like.
A sinking hole that you can't get out of. And the further down that you sink and the darker that things get, the less light that you can see in the future.
Those in power are being urged to bring that light into the lives of South Yorkshire's children. Katie Oscroft, ITV News, Sheffield.
Well, you are watching Monday night's calendar, and still to come on the programme this evening.
I'm at Ellen Road as Leeds United look to go back to the top of the Championship. Standing in their way is fellow promotion chasing Sunderland.
And is it finally going to get warmer? Well, I'll bring you all the details very shortly.
Thank you, Tori. Now, it's estimated there are more than 120,000 victims of modern slavery currently in the UK. The charity says those victims can be found trapped and being forcibly made to work in a wide range of different situations.
In a survey by a charity that works with migrants, more than 3/4 of people in our region who were questioned said they were willing to boycott businesses linked to exploitation, yet only 4 in 10 feel confident recognising the signs of it. Kevin Ashford has been speaking to one woman who was recognised by the Home Office as a victim of modern slavery.
Loretta Okeke trained as a nurse in Nigeria before accepting a job with a family as a live-in nanny. But when the family moved to the UK, Loretta discovered she was expected to work virtually non-stop, doing all the housework and other chores as well as looking after 4 children. And all of it was unpaid. Loretta was rarely allowed to leave the house, and her phone and passport were taken off her.
I was very scared and confused, and I felt helpless because my family is back home in Nigeria and I'm in UK. I didn't know anyone, and then I because I don't have the freedom to even go out. I don't meet people to discuss what I'm going through. So it was really scary and traumatizing.
What has been like the biggest challenge?
Sharing my story.
Loretta only escaped when she was thrown out of the house. She's now a trustee for a charity that supports modern slavery victims like her. The charity says more needs to be done to highlight the extent of the problem. They do appear to have public sympathy. According to a survey, just under 3/4 of people in Yorkshire and northern Lincolnshire who were questioned said they would boycott businesses proven to be linked to exploitation. But only around 4 in 10 said they'd feel confident recognising the signs of modern slavery.
We're seeing it in the construction sector. We're seeing it in the agricultural sector when it comes to seasonal working. There's a growing problem with the care sector as well. So often it's where exploiters can take advantage of sectors that might be struggling to recruit, or where there might be gaps that they can hide people who are in slavery.
Loretta has managed to rebuild her life, as well as her work highlighting the plight of modern slavery victims. She also has a nursing job. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
It's terrible to think that it's still going on. Well, earlier I spoke to Andrew Wallace from Unseen UK. That's a charity that runs an anti-slavery helpline. And I started by asking him about the scale of the issue.
A decade ago, the Home Office was talking about 13,000 victims, so we're now talking tenfold. And we see it within forced labour, domestic servitude, trafficking for sexual exploitation, forced criminality. And it's up and down our high streets, it's in our factories, it's in our fields. Sometimes we see it in nail bars and car washes, but sometimes it's more hidden. So domestic servitude, say within private residencies, is where people are held and exploited for the sole purposes of making money for their exploiter.
And what can we do to try and help solve this?
So the key thing is to know the indicators to look out for, to be curious. And when you have that gut feeling that the person that is serving you, the person that you're encountering, is in a situation of exploitation, if you think there's immediate danger, then the first port of call is the police calling 999. But if not, then it's to call the Modern Slavery Helpline on 08000 121 700 with that piece of information, and you will encounter trained call handlers that will know what to do with that information, who to get that information to, and ultimately that may lead to the release from exploitation of individuals.
Andrew, for you, what is the one thing that you would look out for?
I think it comes down just to that gut feeling that this situation isn't right, or why am I forced to just pay cash, or why does that individual not fully interact with me? It is that sense that something isn't right, that somebody is being coerced and being exploited. And if you have that sense, then please call the helpline.
Andrew Wallace, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, some important information there. Now, time for some sport and a massive game at Elland Road this evening.
Xero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
Yes, and Chris is back with us, back in his usual spot. It's like musical chairs in here, isn't it?
It is a little bit, isn't it?
I'm not doing the sport.
Next week?
I'd like to see you try.
Yeah, next week.
Maybe not.
No.
You're a very good stunt double.
Oh, thank you very much. Just keeping your seat warm for you, Ian.
Thank you.
Being a good friend.
You did a great job.
Thank you very much. And talking of keeping it warm, well, Leeds fans will need to wrap up tight tonight because it's going to be freezing at Elland Road for their big game with Sunderland. Arif Ahmed is live for us there tonight. Arif, those Leeds players, though, they shouldn't need much warming up, should they?
Oh, very little, if any, Chris. That's because Leeds United have been on fire in the league, especially here at Ellen Road. We've only lost once so far this season. That was way back in September. In the last 5 league games, they've scored 17 goals and conceded just once. And it's that firepower that former winger John Hendry believes will be too much for Sunderland tonight.
I mean, Leeds played very well up at Sunderland. I mean, obviously the Meller effort mistake right at the end cost them 2 points. I'm sure they'll be smarting from that. But yeah, they'll just want to carry on going because at this moment in time they're a well-oiled machine and playing out their skin, and they want to maintain the form they've got at this moment in time.
And especially for Leeds, absolutely flying at the minute.
Yeah, and it's obviously you look at the front line, not just Pirro who's scoring goals of late, but you look in the wide positions. Added to that fact is they've got great substitutes as well who can come on if they're not scoring goals, and they can do that as well. But Sunderland come here, they're playing with confidence as well. I mean, for me, they're even better on their travels, so that should be a humdinger tonight.
Well, Chris, a win for Leeds will take them 2 points clear of Sheffield United at the top of the Championship. A draw will still see them leapfrog Sheffield United, but only on goal difference. It is worth noting, though, that Leeds haven't beaten Sunderland here at Ellen Road for over 20 years, but they haven't played each other every year in that 2 and a bit decades. But Leeds United, in the form they're in here at Ellen Road, under the lights with a raucous crowd behind them, well, you have to say that it would be a brave man that bets against Leeds.
Certainly will be out for a brave man who doesn't wear a scarf as well tonight, and some woolly socks. Can be freezing down at Ellen Road tonight, isn't it? Well, as Arif mentioned, Leeds knocked off top spot by Sheffield United at the weekend. The Blades beat Luton on Saturday 1-0. Without a goal all season prior to last Wednesday, Anel Ahmedodzic has now scored in consecutive games for the Blades. Not much joy, though, on the other side of Sheffield, where Wednesday were beaten 2-1 by Coventry. A point dropped, quite literally, after this mistake from goalkeeper James Beadle. Now, Huddersfield Town were our only winners in League One. They actually fell behind in their Yorkshire derby at Barnsley. Former Town man John Russell with the goal, not wanting to celebrate there either. But the Terriers stormed back in the second half, turning the score around thanks to 2 goals in the space of 2 minutes. The first from Josh Karoma, and then the second, this free kick from Ben Wiles that eluded everyone and nestled into the bottom corner. 2-1, the final score. And just the one winner in League Two as well, Jasper Moon, the star, as Harrogate beat Swindon by 1-0. The Bradford Bulls will fancy their chances of claiming another top-flight scalp in the 4th round of Rugby League's Challenge Cup. They've been drawn away to Salford. Elsewhere, the Leeds Rhinos will travel to St Helens. Championship sides Batley and Featherstone will play Super League opposition in Lee and Catalan, respectively. And there's a West Yorkshire derby as Huddersfield welcome Wakefield. And finally from me, the Sheffield Steelers bounced back from their midweek defeat in the Challenge Cup with 2 wins in ice hockey's Elite League over the weekend. After beating Guildford on Saturday, the Steelers produced a stunning comeback against top-of-the-table Belfast. From 2-0 down going into the 3rd and final period, the Steelers scored 5 unanswered goals to close the gap on the leaders at the top. And that is your lot from me for this evening.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Seems strange to say goodbye to you now.
I know, it seems strange to be stood here and sat down. You enjoying yourself, sat down there?
Don't get too comfortable in my seat.
I won't, don't worry. I learnt from the master last week, by the way, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris.
You're welcome.
See you later. OK then, next to an incredible journey, which a triple amputee who suffered terrible injuries in a bomb blast in Afghanistan is about to embark on.
Yes, Craig Wood from Doncaster lost both legs and his left hand 16 years ago while serving as a rifleman in Afghanistan. Recovery has been a long journey, but he's found courage and strength through his childhood passion of sailing in Bridlington.
That's right. Now he's about to embark on a new world record with a solo sail across the Pacific, no less. Well, earlier we spoke to Craig and we asked him how he's feeling about the challenge ahead.
There's a little bit of anxiety and apprehension. You know, I want to do well for everyone and make sure that I'm at the best of my ability to complete this epic voyage.
What are the particular things then that you've got to look out for on this from a kind of danger and challenging point of view?
Making sure I do things early in terms of safety. If the weather's got up too much and I haven't done the necessary things to slow me down, then it's already too late. So I'm just going to make sure I'm doing everything early, making sure I'm clipped in, making sure I'm well fed and well rested.
That sounds like something that an able-bodied person would have to do as well. What's different, though, for you?
Not much, really. It's just a bit more difficult. It's 70 days at sea, you know, for anyone that's quite difficult. But for me, if I get sores on my legs, I won't be able to wear my prosthetics. If I hurt my right hand, I won't be able to do much. So I have to try and mitigate all of these potential injuries, what an able-bodied person may be able to overcome quite easily.
And we know you're doing this for a very, very good cause. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Blesma and Turned Starboard. Blesma were there essentially immediately after I was injured. Didn't ask for anything in return, didn't want any thanks, just if I need anything, let us know. We'll try to the best of their ability to get it for me. And Turned to Starboard helped me get my sailing qualifications and essentially direct me the correct way in the school of sailing. And without their skill set and knowledge, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing next month.
Craig, you're so much closer to setting off on this voyage. Let me take you back to 2009 when we've got some pictures of the now Queen visiting you in hospital. What do you think when you think back to that time and what you're about to take on next month?
Yeah, it's a big progression, eh? Yeah, I'm just glad the way it's turned out, really.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us on Calendar. We really appreciate it. Of course, we send you all our best wishes and the very best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Good luck. And don't worry, we will keep you up to date with how that adventure of Craig's goes. So finally, if you're visiting York this week, you might be forgiven for thinking that, well, you've possibly stepped back in time.
That's because a Viking encampment has taken over the centre of the city as part of the biggest Viking festival in Europe.
Yeah, these modern invaders are giving visitors a chance to try their hand at the combat styles of their historic predecessors and perhaps even enjoy a Viking feast, no less. Martin Fisher has been down to find out more.
Well, the Vikings have well and truly landed here in York. You can see this is one of their longboats here in the city centre, and it feels actually Scandinavian weather. It's very cold, so to keep warm, well, the Vikings wove. And here's Enya. Enya, what are you making?
A nice blanket to keep me warm through the winter.
Tell me about the skill. Were they very skilled at weaving?
They were incredibly skilled, yeah. Some of the Viking fabric is very fine indeed. It's really lovely.
And will this take long to complete?
Yes, it takes quite a long time, but I'm willing to stick it out.
Thanks, Enya. Well, they weren't just skilled at weaving, oh no. They were wood turners as well. And here is Tryggvi Treehammer. Tryggvi, what are you making?
Well, I'm making a bowl and obviously a little bit of a mess. And we're sort of trying to show that the Viking side that had plenty of skills. So we wanted to make sure that people were aware that it wasn't just about the axe-wielding, bloodthirsty side of Vikings, that very much they were good at making things as well. So that's exactly what I'm doing this week.
They really did make some beautiful things, didn't they?
They did. They made some wonderful carving things. They made some beautiful bowls. There's lots of good examples that you can see. And obviously we try and reproduce them in the closest way possible to the originals. So trying our very best, as always.
Finish soon?
Oh, yes, definitely. A couple of hours, that's it.
OK, keep going.
Thank you.
Well, I did say it was very cold today here in York, so I'm going to go inside now. Well, I think something is cooking. What have we got on the stove?
Beef stew.
And is this a traditional Viking recipe?
As close as we can possibly get it, yep.
And is this your tea?
It will be, yes.
OK. Well, joining me now is Jay Cummings from the festival. Jay, this is an amazing festival, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. We're expecting about 45,000 people. It's the 40th year we've done this festival, and it's a real celebration of Viking life here in York.
And it's very much hands-on. You can get involved, can't you?
Absolutely. Talk to people, have a go at combat for children. You can come and watch the parade where we've got about 200 Vikings marching through the city. And then we've got two fantastic evening events with our spectacular Sonny Lumiere.
Lots happening, and people perhaps don't usually get involved in the way that they can with this festival.
Absolutely. I mean, children can learn how to be berserkers, which is the ultimate Viking warrior.
I'd love that.
What more could you ask?
Okay. Well, you just heard, if you want to release your inner Viking, the festival will be running all week.
I've been on the streets in York when those Vikings are marauding about, and it's certainly very busy maybe a little bit frightening, but in a good way.
I was going to say, were you scared?
You kind of get caught up in it all.
What about Martin Fisher? Do you think he'd make a good Viking?
Yeah, he maybe needs to put something on his head, doesn't he? One of those, you know, yeah, with the horns. Should we go to Tory?
Today's forecast: seafood and sugar cube towns. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello once again. So after another chilly start to the week, things are finally going to change. It's a slow old process, but by the end of the week we could see temperatures up to 10 degrees higher than they are at the moment. The high pressure that's been bringing us all that cold, cloudy, still weather is being displaced by this low pressure to the west, and it's dragging up some much milder air from the mid-Atlantic, hence why our temperatures are on the rise. But the downside is going to get quite windy. We will see bands of weather coming across, so expect to see some rain or sharp showers. But the payoff is that it won't be quite so cold. Unlike tonight, when it is actually quite chilly out there once again. So clear spells at times could mean a touch of frost here and there. Temperatures down low enough for a touch of frost in a few more rural spots, but the larger towns and cities probably holding up just around freezing, so quite similar to this morning, really. Sunrise is at 7:20 and sunset is at 5:21 in the evening. But after a dry start to the day and a chilly one at that, we should see some hazy sunshine developing, so brightening up nicely, particularly in the second half of the day, when I think it's actually going to feel a lot more cheerful outside after the recent doom and gloom. So highs just a touch up on today, we could see 5 Celsius. Looking a little bit further ahead, we do have the low pressure system starting to bring some wet weather in from the west into Wednesday. However, I think it's going to be a slow old process to reach us, and it's fizzling out all the while. So I think for much of the day it's going to be dry, bright at least to start with, and temperatures just a touch up again. So we're looking at 7, maybe 8 degrees. And then there's quite a jump as we get into the mild air, with highs of up to 14 Celsius to end off the week.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Glad I'm not a Viking with weather like that.
It is a bit chilly, but they do have those fires to keep warm, don't they?
They do, and that lovely, what was it, that lovely beef dish?
That's what you're looking forward to.
Gorgeous. That's it for now. I'll be back with the late news at 10:30.
Thanks for watching. Good night.
Good night.